How's it going? It's Rocky. So, that guy on the background there probably looks pretty familiar to you. Hopefully he is, because he is one of the greatest investors of our time so far as I know. And basically he had two rules in investing. Rule number one is never lose money. And his rule number two is don't forget about rule number one. Anyway, for the first half of the year, we've been doing what I've been calling the $2,000 weekly challenge, where we try to earn an income of at least $2,000 from trading the futures. Unfortunately, for the past few weeks, I have not posted anything, and that's because I broke rule number one and rule number two of Warren Buffett. I did lose a significant amount of money. I blew up my account, and that's just really what happened. And because of that, I took a break from trading. So for the past few weeks, I've taken a break and really focused on other sources of income that I could get for myself and my family, going from rental income to other sources of regular 9 to 5 W2 type of income. But on the side, I'm still passionate about trading, and it is one that I do want to continue on doing. So I do still trade, but now I'm just trading the micro futures, specifically the MYM, which is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So we had a modest week of a gain of $619.41. Most of our days were pretty much green, with the exception of Wednesday, where we did have a negative $717.85. But thankfully, we did recover that and ended the week at $619.41. Now, this is my account statement review where I show you transparently how we're doing, and I do measure my success based on my cash balance. And if you look at my cash balance, this is a lot lower than what it used to be, just because, like what I mentioned, I did blow up my account and I had to withdraw a bunch of money to pay for the expenses for the month itself. But essentially, you can see that the list this week is pretty short because I didn't really trade much at all. The maximum that I traded was a max of 6 contracts of the micro Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is the MYM. And you can see in the middle of the week there that I did deposit $500 to avoid any margin calls, and we will subtract that from our ending cash balance. One thing I wanted to point out is the trade history here. So you can tell that all my trades this week really consisted of just 3 transactions. I had one here where I closed a trade on August 1st, which was a Sunday. And then I opened another one here on August 1st and August 2nd and closed it on August 2nd. So that's trade number 2. And then for trade number 3 here is where, I traded 6 contracts and I closed it all today, August 6th, Friday. So really, the total of $619.41 was from an accumulation of 3 separate transactions or 3 separate trades that I did. So for the week, we did end at a cash balance of $6,318.83. However, since we did withdraw $500 in the middle of the week, we will subtract that from our ending cash. And then our starting cash for the week was $5,199.42. And that gave us our weekly total of $619.41. So that's after commission and fees, but of course, I'd have to put on the side what I need to pay on quarterly taxes. So that would be my gross earnings for the week. And on a typical 9 to 5, 40-hour week, if we subtracted that would equate to an hourly rate of $15.48, which is, not too bad. Could definitely improve from it. But now that we're restarting this little journey that we have, we'll see if we stay consistent and stop blowing up our accounts. So let me talk about this entry that I made here on 10:50 on Sunday. And basically, I opened a contract to go short here. So I had bias to go bearish. And the reason I did that, if you look at the candlesticks, it's a very bearish signal that I'm seeing there. And if we look at the stochastic RSI, we are on the oversold side, which is when I like to short. and basically on the MACD you can tell that it did cross over and it's starting to diverge based on the lines there. And if you can't see it from the lines, always look at the histogram and you see that it's increasing there. So that's why I entered a short. And on the corresponding tick-based chart, unfortunately we can't see what's happening on the stochastic RSI here. Not quite sure why it does this, but anyway, on the MACD itself, you can also see that a crossover occurred, and it was starting to look bearish there. If I were to make an assumption, I'm pretty sure I waited, and that stochastic RSI on this tick base was also on the oversold side, but unfortunately I don't have the data to show you on that. So with this entry of 34,987, it was actually a good entry, and if I was quicker, I could have exited at about 34,960 or so. So my target is about 20 ticks, and that would have been a nice exit. But this pretty much got away from me a little bit. It was late at night when I made this trade. It could have been a disaster really, because when I was making this trade, I figured it would keep going down, and that's why I didn't close it out just yet. I wanted to wait until the European Open, which occurs here at midnight. And lo and behold, when 12 o'clock occurred here, it actually shot up. But anyway, I did average down to basically add 2 more contracts that I shorted at 35,028. And basically I put a stop loss to protect myself. But thankfully it did not hit that stop loss. And if you look at the chart here, when we were close to about 355, when it hit my target, when I had an alarm for it, it did hit it and it alerted me. Yes, I did wake up at 3:55 in the morning for that trade. Not very ideal, and this is 3:55 in the Pacific time, but thankfully it worked out fine, and I was able to exit that trade at 34,923. So with that one trade, we did make $179.30, and that's from 5 contracts of the MYM. So the second trade I want to talk about occurred at 10:40 p.m. on Tuesday, and you'll notice that a lot of my trades has been occurring late in the evening, and that's pretty much because I'm no longer trading during the day. I'm, like what I mentioned, I'm working on other projects at the moment, but this is my passion, so I still want to continue doing this. And right now I'm basically doing it whenever time allows it, and it's been pretty clear for me in the evening. So with this one, I entered basically a little bit prematurely, but I did go long on this. For this 5 contracts that I did enter here, essentially our average is at 34,971, and it may look like I entered on a very bearish candle here, but when I did enter at that time, if we looked at the stochastic RSI, we were actually more on the overbought side. And basically we were also on the MACD diverging on a bullish side, and unfortunately it's a little tricky when you're trading with lower volume, and that's why I was pretty much trusting the tick base more when I'm doing this late at night when it's slower and less volume. And the reason for that is with the tick base, it bases off of 512 trades, and it just averages the volume for me. I see it a lot clearer, and based on what I was seeing, a little early, but on the stochastic RSI we were headed on the overbought side, and I took a bit of a risk on the MACD because when I did enter it at that time, it looked like it did cross over, but it was a bit early for that. So I would say this was actually a great entry. I had a potential to exit right at close to 35,000, but again I got into this groove of just being curious what will happen right at midnight, and unfortunately I also did not want to watch it. I took the risk of holding it overnight, but I did place a stop loss on it, a more generous stop loss, because I am trading the micro, so I can handle a bigger swing than I normally would with the E-mini. And this was quite unfortunate because it dropped a lot when it did open up in the morning, and I had gotten rid of my stop loss at that time, and that is really the main reason why I had to deposit $500 on there to avoid any margin calls. But thankfully it did recover, We recovered today, Friday. We recovered in a sense that I even added one more contract right here on Thursday night. So this trade started on Tuesday. I didn't close it until Friday. And not your ideal trade. It's definitely a very long trade, but I do have the convenience of doing that when trading the micro. Not my best example. I would say this would be the bad trade of the week, but thankfully we did survive this trade. But for this trade right here, we did make $439.80. So I say that's quite a good turnout for something that could have turned very disastrous. Anyway, that's my update for the week. I'm no longer calling it the $2,000 weekly challenge. I am now calling it the Don't Lose Money Challenge. All right, hopefully you enjoyed that and learned something, or actually found it a bit entertaining. And if you didn't, hopefully you learned something on the next one, and hopefully I'll have another content for you next week. All right, see ya.